College football has always been a business for the universities, the athletic department, the athletic director, the coaches, and now finally for the players and the student athletes as well. College football is big business. When it comes to athletic programs in universities, football generally generates the most revenue, mostly due to TV deals, brand sponsorships, ticket sales, merch, donations from boosters. And let's talk about the boosters. So, why is it that a booster would spend thousands upon thousands and work hard to aggregate millions to sponsor athletes? Prior to NIL, even though it broke the rules, and now NIL, that's well within the rules. What do boosters get out of it? We understand what universities get: money, notoriety. But what do boosters get? Well, it seems that there's a few opinions. Boosters get bragging rights. Um, it's an ego driven activity, it's a wealthy flex. They have a bit of power when they come together to try to freeze out a coach by making sure there's no money for the coach to pay players, especially in the NIL era. But that's all getting ready to change. So, do boosters benefit because they associate so closely with the university and they get a W in the win column if their efforts pay off? Or are they actually doing a bit of the recruiting? By sponsoring the players, do they have some type of influence on whether or not the player chooses that particular university? And if a new coach is hired and they freeze out that coach, does that mean the booster has more power than the athletic director who hired said coach? So while I do believe it is a wealthy flex, I think it is also a power trip, one that boosters seem to take really seriously. Now, with change comes adversity, and with players having the ability to make decisions for themselves, exploring new opportunities via the transfer portal, comes the adversity of poaching. Now, Coach Prime revolutionized the transfer portal back at Jackson State University and followed it up when he brought his Louis luggage to Colorado. Now, recently, it's been discussed that Coach Prime has called out the University of Virginia for poaching not one, but attempting to poach boldly a second student athlete. Now, one student is listed as in the portal and still in the portal, hasn't committed anywhere, but supposedly there was a meeting with the University of Virginia and said student was paid $500,000. But why is that student still listed as being in the portal rather than committed? We do have some students from CU who hopped into the portal seemingly voluntarily and within 24 hours were picked up by schools such as University of North Carolina. Now, with Colorado being strong with recruiting, Colorado can easily replace players who are poached. But poaching is against the rules. It is tampering. It's not typical recruiting of players in the transfer portal. It's seeking out players who are not in the transfer portal and enticing them with money or favor or playing time to get into the portal so that they can leave Colorado. Some delusional, biased fans of college football, not necessarily CU, are basically scoffing at Coach Prime calling out Virginia for poaching by saying that's just the pot calling the kettle black. Or says the man who in 2024 had 11 recruiting violations by inviting students who were not in the transfer portal to a camp. And it is true, Colorado did have that infraction. So is the poaching of CU students revenge for, say, Juju Lewis coming to a camp before he was officially in the portal? Is it some type of revenge for Coach Prime successfully flipping Travis Hunter? Although Travis was in high school and not college where he could take advantage of the transfer portal, he did flip his commitment from Florida State to Jackson State and then hit the transfer portal and followed Coach Prime to Colorado and has gone on to win the Heisman. And next week, we'll hear his name called, Travis Hunter, with the second pick in the 2025 NFL draft. The Cleveland Browns select Travis Hunter or something to that sort. So, what's really going on with the poaching? Because you don't hear any other university saying it's happening to them. However, there are 1,000 students in the transfer portal. Now, I don't know if that's a record number or not, but that surely is a lot. 1,000 college football players are in the transfer portal looking and seeking new opportunities, which is perfectly fine. So, earlier today on the What She Said podcast, we discussed that some beloved players have decided to leave the university. And my suggestion is remember, football is a business first, also for the players, so don't get too attached. If you buy a jersey and they leave next, wear it anyway. Cherish the memories. But as with the NFL, you can't get attached because the activity of playing football is volatile. Between starting when we lost Travis Hunter, he was out, and then we have some players that have left other universities. Travis flipped his commitment from one school to the other. And in the NIL era, you can hire an agent if you have the resources to find you a scholarship or starting opportunities at another university during the portal window. So you can declare, I'm entering the portal. And all schools who are actively recruiting, if they're interested in your skill set, can reach out to you, possibly negotiate, and you accept or not. Now, the downside to the transfer portal is that there are some players who entered the transfer portal in November, October, and they are still in the transfer portal, which means they don't have a scholarship, they aren't aligned to a university, and they are not playing football. Now, Coach Prime has always said, don't hit the portal unless you have somewhere to go. Now, I don't know how it is that you have somewhere to go before you hit the portal because it's tampering to make those kind of conversations. So I get it, but then at the same time, it kind of seems difficult to have somewhere to go if it's tampering. And it does seem to be that tampering is being overlooked. There's been no mention of any type of investigation into the University of Virginia and reaching out to one of its running backs from CU to meet with him about getting in the portal and coming to play for them. But it is documented in several news stories that that was the course of action. One of Colorado's best running backs, it is said, was sought after by the University of Virginia. There was a discussion. The student was not in the portal. And after the discussion, the student entered the portal. As of today, 419, 1:25 a.m., the student is still in the portal. So I don't know if Coach Prime's speaking up has basically put a pause into that transaction or if they're just trying to make it look like there's no impropriety by waiting until a few days pass by so that the University of Virginia does not get hit with tampering. Either way, I find it interesting you haven't heard anything from the NCAA, but then again, I do not. The NCAA is not happy about students being compensated. They're trying to put up all sorts of kind of hurdles to make sure that these students can't get paid or to make it a very difficult process. So that I don't expect them to be a governing body as they are expected to be. Um, they seem more defiant that the students have choices. And the purpose of the NCAA was so that the students would have a governing body to protect student athletes. So my motto is we shall see what comes of the tampering accusations by Coach Prime, and if the media will pick up stories that are calling Coach Prime a hypocrite because he was hit with 11 recruiting violations because he invited students who were not in the transfer portal to a camp. So, with 6 or 5 days remaining until the NFL draft, the tampering and poaching story might get lost in the sauce, including the story about Coach Prime possibly being a hypocrite for calling out the University of Virginia, which makes me think that all of this sudden poaching from Colorado is revenge. Of course, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for tuning in to Listen Up Audio Podcast by What She Said Sports. Stay for a while and listen to another episode.